At the beginning of the summer, I set a goal for myself: to win $10,000 playing poker before I head back to school for the fall semester. Throughout my journey, there's been highs, there's been lows. Some of you have believed in me, others not so much. After playing for over 200 hours this summer, we're $525 away from completing this challenge. In this video, we're playing back-to-back sessions with one goal in mind: complete this f***ing challenge. I'm Dookie Betts, and let's turn some sand into gold. Alright guys, so I know that this video is titled Playing 2-5 in Salem, New Hampshire, but before we get into that session, I have a few hands from K-Boulet's home game that I wanted to throw in here as well. If you guys don't know K-Boulet, he's a poker vlogger just as I am. He runs this home game pretty much once a week, and it's always a good time, so we're gonna recap a couple hands that we played. One of the first hands we play in this session comes at 6:34 at night, and it folds to us on the button. We peel King-Queen offsuit here and raise the action to 10 bucks. It now gets over to the big blind player, and he finds the 3-bet here to 30 bucks. I think big blind 3-bets are pretty alarming in low stakes games, given that low stakes players love to just flick in the call with total trash most of the time. So when this player finds the 3-bet from this position, I expect him to have a pretty strong hand here. Against a 4x or 5x raise, I would definitely just be folding king queen off here, but given that we're getting a pretty good price and we get to navigate post flop in position, we decide to flick in the call. We get an ace high flop here. We flop second pair with our king queen, and this player starts the action with a check. We pretty quickly check things back here because I expect this player to have a lot of traps on this board. It's just going to be a good board for his range overall, so we tap the table pretty quickly. We see the king of spades roll off on the turn, and this improves our hand quite a bit. This player checks for a second time, and I think we absolutely need to be going for value now. We pick a size of $40, coming about 2/3 pot. After a lot of thought, this big blind player now throws in 3 green chips and then string bets a 4th one. I pretty quickly call string bet here, and this player is now required to min raise to $80. Playing in position here with not much money behind, I think we can easily get all of the money in on the river, so we just call and continue to lay low. The river comes the jack of hearts, and this player now fires for 100 bucks into about 240, and this is leaving himself about $90 behind. I don't love how this hand played out because I think this player could have easily slow played a hand like aces or ace king on the flop here, but I still think we can get value from a worse ace like ace queen or ace jack, so for that reason we announce all in, looking to pick up the rest of his chips. All in. This player doesn't snap call, but he does call fairly quickly. We announce king queen, and this player rolls over pocket aces. We're gonna lose the max here, and we quickly add on for another $500. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this hand in the comments down below. This next hand comes 2 shuffles later, and we see the +1 player open to $10. I peel pocket queens and put in the 3-bet here to 40 bucks. It's gonna fold over to the small blind player, who pretty quickly puts in the cold 4-bet to $100. This 4-bet is about 1/3 of his stack. He started the hand with about 350 bucks. When it gets back over to me, I think we have a super straightforward jam here. Once again, we ask the dealer for the all-in token. The small blind now hits the tank for a bit and then eventually folds. Pretty weird one here, not too sure what the small blind is 4-betting and then folding when he already has about 1/3 of his chips in the middle, but hey man, we'll certainly take it. We go about an hour without doing much, and we're gonna resume the vlog at around 7:45 at night. We're gonna hop into a $5 PLO bomb pot here. If you guys don't know, a PLO bomb pot is when every player at the table throws in 5 bucks and you head immediately to the flop. In this hand, we peel ace 8-4 with 2 suits and get a lovely flop of ace 10-6 rainbow. Playing from the small blind here, I'm just going to check in the dark over to the rest of the table. It ends up checking all the way over to the button player, who says the P word and then fires out for 40 bucks. This button player is my buddy Ryan, and Ryan is fairly new to PLO. I think if he has anything somewhat strong, he will likely put his whole stack in the middle here. With that being said, we have the nuts on this board, and I could really use a double up here. We say the P word right back and raise things up to $160. It's gonna fold all the way back around to Ryan, who looks a bit confused, but after quite a bit of thought, he says the P word once again.
Yeah, I'm betting pot. That's all.
Yeah, it's all in here.
I call. Obviously, we snap and head to a run out. Ryan rolls over ace 10 7 5 for top 2 pair as well as a backdoor flush draw. We run things once, and after a sweaty diamond card on the turn, we luckily fade his outs and scoop in this pot. After this hand, we're up a few $100 on this session. After that super sweet bomb pot scoop, we play one more interesting hand in this game, which comes about an hour and a half later. It folds to us in the hijack here, and we open things up to $10 with 8-7 of spades. We're gonna see the button player flat, and then my friend Tyler in the small blind now 3-bets to $31. Given this is a pretty small 3-bet, and we're about 300 big blinds deep with Tyler, I think we have a pretty good hand here to take to the streets. We're gonna put in the call for 31 here, and the button player's gonna get out of the way, so we head mono-e-mono to the flop here. We see 3 and get jack 8 4 rainbow board. Tyler's gonna begin the action with a check, and we quickly check things back. The turn comes the 9 of spades, now giving us a flush draw to go with our third pair. Tyler's now gonna come with the delay bet here, and he fires out for $40. As played, I don't really think we can ever fold here. I toy with the idea of raising here for a while, but eventually decide to just call. The river comes a total brick in the form of the deuce of hearts. Tyler now does some weird shit here, and he bets out for $30 into a $1.50. I think as played, we do have a sliver of showdown value with our third pair here. However, I know Tyler fairly well, and I don't think he would ever pick this size with an overpair or a strong top pair hand. I think my hand has pretty bad properties to bluff here, given we're blocking missed flush draws with spades here, but against this size, I really don't think I can help myself. I'm going to raise things up here to a $210, and I begin shooting prayers up to the sky for a fold here. Tyler's going to sit there fidgeting for quite a while, and after about 20 or 30 seconds of tanking, he moves all in for $475. Well, this bluff didn't work out at all, and we snap fold. Tyler later told us that he had pocket 10s, so our read about him not having a super strong hand was spot on. However, he just wrecked our world here with the 3-bet bluff on this river. Pretty savage stuff on Tyler's end here, so we're just going to tip our cap and move on. After that hand, we ended up playing for a bit longer, but not much action after that. All in all in this session, we were in for $1,000, out for $1,025, and we played for about 6 hours. Pretty much a break-even session, but now we're exactly $500 away from completing our challenge. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is going to be part 2 of the same video. We played a couple hands in his garage last night. That game was alright. Yeah. We played We played a couple interesting ones. I don't think enough to make a full video. Today, we're headed to New Hampshire, and we're going to play some 2-5 over at the new place in Salem. Casino Salem, something like that. We're going to come in for like $1,000, play some 2-5, and turn some sand into gold. We're $500 away from completing the challenge, so we're going to try and do that tonight. Let's hop into it, and yeah. We jump into the action at around 6 o'clock at night, and our first hand of the session comes about 20 minutes later. Playing 6-handed here, we see Cable A open under the gun to $15. The hijack flats and it gets over to us. We peel pocket 8s here. A couple of options are going to be on the table here. I think this hand would play fairly well as a set mine in position, but against Kyle under the gun, I think it would be way more fun to find the 3-bet. I think Kyle's probably going to be a bit too loose from under the gun, and this hijack flat is likely dead money. So that being said, we raise things up to $60, and surprisingly both players end up calling here. We get a flop of Queen 10-5 rainbow board, and both players check it over to us. I decide to take a shot at this pot right now and fire out for $60, going about 1/3 pot. Both Kyle and the hijack player fold, and we're very quickly up a bit more than $100 to start the day. Exactly 1 orbit later, we're once again on the button and it folds to us. We peel Queen 8 offsuit and open the action to $30 over Kyle's $10 straddle under the gun. This is a pretty wide open, but I'm going to try and play as many pots with Kyle tonight as possible, given I think he's a huge fish. Just kidding, love you, Kyle. Our plan falls perfectly into place here when the small blind and the big blind fold, and Kyle elects to play some defense here. We get a flop of 10-10-4 rainbow board, and Cable A checks it over to us. In position here, just gonna be stabbing, we fire out for $20. After a bit of thought, Kyle comes with the call, and we go to the turn. The turn comes the 5 of spades, not changing much. Kyle checks for a second time, and I think I'm gonna get a bit out of line here. I know that Kyle is not the biggest fan of folding to to me. So I think he's gonna have continued with tons of air when I down bet on the flop. If he's got a pocket pair like 6s, 7s, or 9s, I think we can likely put him in a pretty miserable spot here on the turn. And if he's got some sort of 10x holding, he may have check raised us on the flop. Additionally, any 6, 7, or spade river, our hand will have some blockers to nutted hands. So for that reason, I fire out for $125 over betting the pot here. It's back over to Kaboulet now, and after mowing over all of his options, he puts in the check raise to $375.
It's just like sugar, brown sugar water.
Show the 10, Kyle. Be a good boy.
Obviously nothing to do here now except give up. We throw our hand away. Kyle later posted a vlog from this session, and he did in fact have queen 10 of hearts in that last hand, so we were let off the hook there. This next hand comes 3 hands later. We pick up ace 10 of spades in the hijack 6-handed. We open things up to $30 over a $10 straddle. The button is going to put in the 3-bet here to $105. It folds back over to us. We flick in the call with our pretty looking suited ace. With about $225 in the middle, we see 3 and get a flop of king 4 deuce with 2 spades. I check and flow over to the button, and this player c-bets for $75. Obviously, I'm never folding here. That leaves calling and raising left on the table. I think both are good options, so I decide to do the most fun option and bang out the check raise to $225.
Saw that coming a mile fucking way.
Alright, so far today we've won a pot by bluffing with third pair, lost a pot bluffing with queen high, and won a pot with the nut flush draw. I think it's time to make a value hand. About an hour goes by, but eventually we play hand number quattro of the vlog. We see the hijack limp in for $5. I complete in the small blind with pocket 5s, and then the big blind comes in with a pretty tiny raise to $15. The hijack limper calls, and our hand really only serves one purpose here, and it's to go set mining. So we flick in the call and head 3 ways to the flop. We get a delicious flop of 10-10-5 here. We flop bottom boat, and we're just going to start with a check in flow over to the big blind. It eventually checks through, and we see the 4 of hearts roll off on the turn. It's my turn to act here, and I definitely want to be betting my hand. As I'm thinking about what size I want to bet here, the big blind bets out of turn for $40. When the hijack player decides to call, I'm absolutely loving it. I put in the check raise here to $140, adding a nice clean $100 on top of the original $40 wager. The big blind pretty quickly calls, and now the hijack ships it all in for $168. The action doesn't reopen, so we only got one move here. We call, and the big blind comes in as well. The river is the king of hearts, and it's time to play a fun game called Pick the Size. I have about $900 behind, and I think it's fairly likely that this big blind player could have been on some sort of flush draw, which is now completed on the river. Also, if this player has a hand with a 10 in it, he's probably not folding to the big size. After a bit of thought, we announce all in and jam for $900. Unfortunately, the big blind snap folds. What he later told us was 7-6. We turn over our hand and take down this pot. Really nice pickup here, and we're now up about $400 on the session. This next hand, I'm really not proud of at all, but let's get into it. Kyle opens the action to $15 from the hijack playing 5-handed. The button player calls, and we peel king 5 of clubs in the small blind. I don't advise doing this, but I come in with a rather light 3-bet here to $75. I think if the button player had a good hand, he would have 3-bet himself, and playing 5-handed, I think Kyle can definitely be getting involved pretty light here. Kyle's gonna throw in the call for $75, and the button player gets out of the way, so we go heads up out of position to the flop with about $165 in the middle. We get a flop of queen 7-4, two-tone board, and we begin the action with a check here. Kyle pretty quickly checks behind. When he does this, I don't expect him to ever have a queen here, given he would likely start betting most of his queen X on this wet flop. The turn comes the 8 of diamonds. 5-6 improves to the nut straight, and luckily we have a 5 in our hand. Additionally, we have a reasonable amount of equity with our flush draw here, so I think we're going to start bluffing at this one. We fire out for $80, going about 1/2 pot. Kyle calls fairly quickly, and now we're wishing for a club on the river to make our life much easier. Unfortunately, the club does not come when we get the 10 of diamonds to roll off on the river. Looking back on this hand, I think we have a pretty straightforward give up here because the blockers in our hand are pretty dog shit to bluff with. We don't have any diamonds in our hand, which would be a relevant blocker, and we're also blocking a lot of the missed flush draws that Kyle can have with our clubs in our hand. However, I really don't think that Kyle would ever be this passive with a super strong top pair or anything better on this board. I think if he had a hand like top pair or maybe even a set, we likely would have heard about it by now. So for that reason, we decide to run a fairly outrageous bluff here. We fire out for $275. Kyle hits the tank pretty hard here, and while we're waiting for him to act, we decide to grab his vlogging camera and shoot a little bit of B-roll for his vlog. At the end of the day, Kyle is a good friend of mine, and I really wouldn't want a moment like this to go uncaptured. We're gonna sit here and suffer through a pretty long tank from Kyle, but after a while, he eventually lays down what he later told us was pocket nines. We triumphantly roll over the bluff and rub it in a little bit. Like I said, I think this hand was way too reckless to be bluffing with, especially against a player like Kyle who really doesn't like to fold against us. If I could go back and do it again, I probably would have bet about a third on the flop, found a pretty chunky size on the turn, and then probably would have given up on the river. But at the end of the day, we won the pot. Let me know what you guys think about this line down in the comments below. Some time goes by, we take a quick break, and eventually we get moved into the main game running at Casino Salem. The main game is playing as a 2-5-5 game with the mandatory third blind, and then an optional $10 straddle under the gun if the player wants to. At this table, they're also playing the duck game, which is similar to the fire truck game or other variations of bounty games played around the country. To summarize, you win a duck for every pot you win in a row. If a player wins 3 hands in a row, each player at the table is going to pay the winner $25. For a fourth duck, every player at the table pays $50. The duck game runs indefinitely throughout the night, and it brought a ton of action to this game, so we're definitely in for a treat here. Our first hand at the main game, we're playing 2-5-5-10 when we see our friend Action Ben in the hijack open things up to $25. I peel King Jack suited and chuck in the 3-bet here to $75. Interestingly enough, we see the button, small blind, and Action Ben in the hijack call. Going 4 ways in a 3-bet pot certainly isn't something that happens too often, so I'm thoroughly pleased to realize that I'm in an absolutely phenomenal game right now. We get a flop that's total dust, and it checks over to the button player who flicks in $200. It quickly folds around to us. We release our cards into the muck here, obviously. This hand really wasn't interesting at all, but it goes to show the dynamics of this game quite well. At our last table, we were able to get away with being out of line and running people over with aggression. At this table, I think we're just going to need to make some value. 3 minutes later, we face off in an 8-way $15 PLO double board bomb pot. We peel Jack 8-5 deuce, which is a terrible hand in PLO. However, when we flop the nut straight on 7-6-4 and 3 of a kind on Queen Jack Jack, I do get a little bit excited. With $120 in the middle, the big blind fires out here for pot. It's going to fold over to the low jack player who flicks in the call. I'm not very good at PLO, so if you're looking for an in-depth analysis on this hand, you've come to the wrong place. With my hand on these boards, I'm looking to shovel my chips in the middle as fast as possible. I pot things up to $600, which is about half my stack. It folds over to the first bettor in this hand, who now goes all in for less. He's got about $375. The low jack caller announces all in. He's got us covered. I started the hand with about $1,250, and I'm certainly not folding. I flick in the call, and we head to a run out in this nearly $3,000 pot. The top board comes running 10s, which isn't ideal for our flopped straight. The bottom board comes uncoordinated and doesn't change much. When it's all said and done, we're going to chop the side pot with the low jack player who has pocket queens. In the main pot, we're also going to chop up the big blind's money who got it in with pocket aces. Overall, pretty good result for us here. I'm happy that we didn't get quartered in this one, and we're able to add about $250 in profit to our stack. This next hand comes about 25 minutes later. We peel ace deuce of hearts under the gun and open things up to $20. I think in this game we can honestly just fold this hand under the gun, but it feels pretty close. It looks like everyone wants to make the vlog here because we don't get 1, we don't get 2, we don't get 3, we don't get 4, we don't get 5, but yeah, we get 6 callers here. Yeah, this game is pretty good. 7 ways to a flop here. We flop top pair, but with our deuce kicker, I'm honestly not too thrilled about it. It's gonna end up checking over to our friend Jason on the button, who fires out here for $35. It folds back over to me, and I think we have a pretty easy call here. A lot of Jason's top pair holdings that are currently ahead of us probably would have squeezed pre-flop given the ridiculous number of callers. We put in the $35 and everyone else folds. The field is thinned from 7 to 2, so I'm feeling much better about my chances of winning this pot now. The turn comes the deuce of spades, improving us to 3 pair. except 3-pair isn't a thing in No Limit Texas Hold'em, so actually our hand remains the same. We check and flow once again, and Jason keeps his foot on the gas, coming with a $1.20. I'm still not in love with this spot because I think our hand is pretty much a glorified bluff catcher at this point. I do think a lot of Jason's better aces would have 3-bet pre-flop, and I'm honestly not totally sure how much 8x he's going to be flatting on the button here. Ultimately, I decide to flick in the call, and I'm probably going to get out of the way if I face a third street of aggression here. The river comes the queen of diamonds, and honestly I really like this card. I'm now chopping with any ace-x that he can have, assuming ace-queen and ace-king would have 3-bet pre-flop. I check for a third time, and Jason quickly checks back. I table my ace-deuce and take down this pot. I'm not entirely sure what he had here, but I'm glad that we did not have to get put to the test on the river here. This last hand of the session was absolute insanity, so strap in. With the $10 straddle on, we see Action Ben bump things up to $50 from the hijack. I peel pocket queens next to act and bump things up to $125. I honestly didn't mean to go this small, but I've been playing for a while at this point and my brain is starting to malfunction. It's gonna fold all the way over to the $10 straddle, and this player flicks in the cold call. I've played with this player a handful of times in the past, and describing him as an action player would be an understatement. Action Ben is now getting a good price in the hijack here, so he flicks in the call as well. So we're going 3 ways with already about $400 in the middle. We get a very unassuming flop of 6-4-4 rainbow board. As played, it's fairly difficult for either player to have a 4 here, with the exception of a hand like ace-4 suited. When both players check it over to me, I come with a small bet of $125. The straddle's gonna put in the call here, and Action Ben is gonna fold, so we're now heads up in position with a bit over $600 in the middle. The turn comes the jack of spades, bringing in the flush draw. The straddle checks for a second time, and we keep our foot on the gas here and fire out for $250, going fairly small once again. The straddle player now does something that I did not expect at all, and he jams all in, covering us for about $13.50 effective. What the actual fuck? The straddle player would always be 4-betting jacks, kings, and aces pre-flop, so I'm not too worried about top boat or over pairs larger than ours. There's 3 combos of pocket 6s available, 2 combos of ace-4 suited, and 1 combo of pocket 4s. We don't really lose to that much, and I think folding an overpair to this player would be quite the mistake. After a bit of thought, I decide to die with my pocket queens here, and I flick in the call. When it's all said and done here, this pot ends up being slightly over $3,000. This will end up being the second largest pot of my life, and the largest pot that I've ever highlighted on the vlog. After a bit of negotiation, we decide to run things 2 times, and I turn over my hand. The first board comes the king of hearts, and the second board comes the queen of spades. This player eventually mucks his hand, and we take down this mammoth of a pot. This player later told us that he had ace-8 of spades for the turned flush draw. Pretty savage shove from him on the turn here. I'm super happy that we were able to fade his outs on both boards and take down this huge pot. After that wild hand, we ended up playing for about an hour more, but obviously that queen's hand is pretty much the climax of this session. All in all, on the day, we were in for 1,000, out for 3,180, and we played for about 6.5 hours. So just an absolutely beautiful result for us in Salem, New Hampshire. And yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap up the video today. That session in Salem pushed us well over our $10,000 goal, and we finished the summer making $11,680 in 241 hours of poker. Throughout the challenge, we made an hourly of $48 an hour, which is a number that I'm super proud of. Obviously, completing the $10,000 bankroll challenge was one of my primary goals this summer, but another side goal I had was to try and surpass 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Currently, we're at about 8,700, so we're getting pretty close. And every video I've posted has gotten a ton of support and has done quite well. So I just wanted to thank you guys quickly for that. The constant support on the videos inspires me to work hard, keep editing videos, and keep trying to push out content for you guys. So once again, thank you so much guys for the support, and I really appreciate all of you. We still have a couple more weeks before I head back to school for the fall semester, so in the next video I'm going to be playing a 1-2-5 home game with some pretty ridiculous action. You're not going to want to miss that one. And then the weekend after that, we're going to Atlantic City to play some cash for the weekend down at the Borgata. Both of those videos are going to be sick, so if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, make sure to go down below and do that right now. Until next time guys, I'm Dookie Betts.